The world of Little Nightmares is weird, to say the least, with a lot of clashes between what's real and what isn't, and I think it's intentional. Like my previous video on how Inside closely resembles a dystopian world that ours is slowly turning into. Little Nightmares pretty much prefers something similar. Since our young age, we have experienced nightmares at some point, often interrupting our sleep or leaving us disturbed for several hours. And as the title suggests, Little Nightmares builds on those fears and turns them into a whole world to explore, with both benefits and consequences. So in this video, we will dive deep into the world of Little Nightmares, specifically 1 and 2, since they are linked and form the foundation of everything we need to know. Once we understand how the world of Little Nightmares work, it makes it a lot more terrifying than what it looks from the outside. Most of the world of Little Nightmares is explored in their podcast called The Sounds of Nightmares. While a second season is confirmed to be in development, the first season offers more than enough to know about how Little Nightmares work. I highly recommend you check out their podcast as there is much more lore about their world than what I'm about to offer. So let's begin. The world is split into two places, the counties and the nowhere. The counties is a place where the Sounds of Nightmares podcast takes place, while nowhere is the place where Little Nightmares 1, 2, and Very Little Nightmares takes place. The place linking between these two is known as the threshold, which serves as a bridge between them, often represented as a very thick, grey, dense mist right in front of the final destination. This is seen in Little Nightmares 1 and 2, often starting with the thick mist that reveals a mysterious figure or object before either protagonist wake up from their slumber. And I shall briefly talk about the counties before going in depth about the nowhere, since that is the main area of discussion. The counties are more like Earth, not in a way it is, but how it functions, that is. It serves as the place where little children are born and brought up through their normal lives. Well, at least in their standards, since the counties are described as a grim, deeply corrupted city where everyday human citizens willfully ignore the bizarre, dark, and unsettling anomalies happening around them. Here, these children are brought up as usual, but some go through intense torture and throughout the nightmares or in their real-life parts. These latter children are the ones who are eligible to enter the nowhere. And they don't just pull those particular ones to the place. They send someone who acts as a medium, someone who helps these children travel through the threshold and into the nowhere. That person is known as the ferryman, or nicknamed the candleman, because of how droopy he is in his appearance, almost like melted wax from a candle. Now we get to the nowhere, which is the eventual final destination for these children. Now, to say the nowhere is a place or world wouldn't do justice. It is an area built upon trauma of little children, often evolving and not fixed to a particular architecture. It keeps changing itself, so what one child sees, the other sees differently. And these places aren't just placed randomly. There is a reason for every placement. Take the Maw, for example, a massive ship from the first Little Nightmares game. The Maw exists because hunger exists. Everything around the Maw is related to food in one way or another, and 6 is the ideal embodiment of hunger, which you can find commonly throughout the playthrough. The Maw is using it completely against her to make her submit to its realm and become a resident forever. Same with the Pal City, which is centered around escapism, as several residents present there were being drawn to the television, which is Mono's power. And the Nowhere wants to make use of that power to ensure the residents remain entertained and not try to plot an escape. And I think by now it is clear what the main goal of the Nowhere is, and it is to consume these children and convert them into residents, people whose lives revolve around that particular place alone. And it does so by ever so slowly erasing the child's identity from their mind by making them forget who they were in the first place. This could explain why 6 is called 6 and Mono is called Mono. It isn't their true name, but rather one they began to associate with after being consumed. An active method many children started doing is by actively remembering out loud who their true identity is. They would often repeat this several times until eventually they get consumed as well. Though effective, not enough to combat the nowhere. And now we know how the nowhere works. So let's take a closer look with the Little Nightmares entries. Now I am aware that Little Nightmares 3 did come out, but since it isn't related to the first two or its mobile counterpart, I will save that for a separate video. Now according to the release year, this is the order that it goes through. But chronologically speaking, this is the order that we'll be following, so it makes a lot more sense. Without further ado, let's begin. The game takes place in The Nest, a floating mansion, and we take control of the girl in a yellow raincoat, not to be confused with Six, who also wears a yellow raincoat in the later games. In this, we try to escape from the mansion, which is run by the Pretender. As the name implies, she pretends to have everything, from guests to friends to family members, and her house is run by the butler who manages everything for her. But what's strange is that those people whom she pretends to have fun with aren't real people. In fact, those are dolls, made from different children who are converted into residents. This emphasizes the fear of being alone, or being left behind, not having someone by her side at times. And it's unclear if she is aware of this and yet chooses to go with it, or she just has no clue about it, as she does show certain outbursts at times upon these dolls, only to later cry about doing such harm when she didn't intend to. At some point, the yellow girl encounters Six, initially locked behind a cage. Freeing her just sets up to run away from the yellow girl. Even at some point where the yellow girl did help Six, Six just puts herself over her. Near the showdown, the yellow girl and Six team up together to escape the butler, only for Six to betray the yellow girl once again. At the final showdown, where she tries to escape from the Pretender, Six hurls a large boulder at the Pretender, knocking her out. But just as the yellow girl tries to reach out to Six, the Pretender lunges at her, killing both the yellow girl and herself, as shown by the floating yellow raincoat, which usually symbolizes one's death. During the end credits, you see Six running down the cliff, possibly trying to escape the place or trying to get the raincoat. Whichever it may be, it is clear that Six managed to escape the nest and learn something valuable. Sacrifices are needed if one has to survive. And this vital thought will play a crucial role in the next installment. We are presented with the threshold, with a locked door leading to the nowhere. Just before it opens up, we wake up, completing the transfer from the counties to the nowhere. And now we play as Mono, a young boy who seems to have an identity crisis as he covers his face with a paper bag, or he just doesn't want to reveal who he truly is. As we explore, we encounter Six again, behind a wooden door, playing a tune on the box. Although she looks to be held captive, she looks rather calm and composed, indicating that it has been a while since her eventual capture, and she has grown through it. Eventually, after freeing her in a very friendly manner, it was obvious why Six would be afraid of Mono. But as time passes, they get used to each other's company and work together to take down the hunter, who was responsible for keeping Six under captivity, representing the fear of predation, being the bigger and stronger enemy against its relatively opposite victim, being at an unfair advantage. They still manage to turn the tables around and make a getaway from the isolated place. As Six and Mono proceed through the endless mist and lonely waters, they enter the shores of the Pale City, a very gloomy, almost abandoned-like city with only a handful of citizens living there. But even so, there are a lot of things wrong with them as well. This is also an area created by the Nowhere long before, but with Mono present, it serves as a perfect place for his awakening and eventual takeover. starting with the school, where there are these Muppets known as the porcelain bullies, representing the fear of getting bullied, being caught at your weakest moment, and using that against you. They trap Mono and capture Six once again, leaving Mono on his own while he searches for Six. While navigating through, we encounter the long-necked teacher, and she is quite strict, so much so that even the bullies fear her and maintain discipline. As expected by this behavior, she represents the fear of surveillance or discipline, where every action you do is being noted and can be punishable, making sure you stay clean whenever and wherever possible, so as to avoid any unnecessary trouble. But regardless, Mono escapes the bullies by beating them into pieces with a hammer, frees Six, and escapes the teacher's grasp ever so closely, where we encounter the next area, the hospital, where a doctor is questionably treating the patients, to say the least. The doctor in this universe refers to the fear of medication or being operated on, or having to receive the news about the loss of a loved one. This often comes in the form of syringe or undelightful medications. Even worse are surgeries, where even adults fear the same. It's one of those fears that we know are necessary for us to stay alive, but we aren't brave enough to take it on our own, or have the courage to receive the news of our loved ones is often a fear that we hold on to, as no matter how great a surgery would have gone, there is a chance that something might go wrong during that time, and not many are brave enough to face the truth when it's needed the most. Despite such fears, we manage to incinerate the doctor, and Six gives a really interesting reaction right after we do something like that. Throughout our journey, Mono encounters these televisions that emit a static frame, but at a perfectly tuned frequency to distract Mono into the television, where he can manipulate the frequency waves even more to enter what appears to be a long hallway, leading to a door at the end. But every time Mono gets close to it, he is pulled away from the TV by Six, up until this point, where he successfully manages to open the door, revealing the Thin Man, the main antagonist of this game. Despite Six pulling Mono away from the television, the Thin Man has already escaped from its confinement and now actively targets both of them, successfully taking Six away, leading to only its shadow remaining, nicknamed Shadow 6. Although the loss is devastating, freeing the Thin Man also gave Mono the ability to traverse through the area with the help of these televisions' finely tuned frequency. It's also at this point where we learn something about the common residents in this area. All of them are drawn to these televisions, often stopping whatever they are doing at the moment just to have a look at the television. Due to the prolonged exposure to the television, their faces have also been distorted, barely looking like their faces in the first place. And this also seemed to be riddled with depression, as many can be seen jumping from the rooftops onto the floor below. This brings to mind several instances where social media often resulted in an individual's demise. The most well-known one is the Blue Whale Challenge. It consisted of a set of challenges that whoever enrolls for this challenge has to compete, ranging from doing a dare to carving its logo on your arm. And despite what tasks it gives to you, it all comes back to the final task: jump from a high ground to your demise. This strongly correlates with the common residents of this game, where they are willing to jump buildings as long as they get the satisfaction of watching the television. But just close by, he finds Six trapped in one of these televisions. He tries to free Six, only for the Thin Man to emerge and chase him down, barely escaping from his grip. But motivated to continue after being guided by Shadow 6, he faces the Thin Man on a one-on-one duel, removing his mask before getting to face him, showing that he is done running and being a coward, and is ready to face the danger ahead. Both possess extremely similar powers, but Mono's is a lot stronger, not just repelling the Thin Man, but entire buildings on the side as well, slowly showing that he is being converted into one of its residents. Once the Thin Man is defeated, he pulls a signal tower towards himself and enters, where he finds Six, extremely enlarged and strongly attracted to the soundbox. Damaging it, makes 6 more aggressive to Mono, but it's for her own good. At the end, the whole tower starts to collapse, and both 6 and Mono make a getaway. At the end, 6 decides to do the unthinkable. There are a lot of theories about this decision, but I'll get into it at the end. Once Mono drops 6 to the ground, he fortunately survives, where he takes the seats and resumes the duty of the former person, slowly but eventually turning into the Thin Man himself. And just like that, the loop is reset, as the Thin Man waits in his confinement, hoping for the day his younger self frees him from his confinement to repeat the same thing. Six makes it out safe and sound to a nearby apartment, where Shadow 6 points at a poster, an advertisement of the mall, and Six's hunger slowly starts to get to her, thus setting the location for the first Little Nightmares. Now regarding why 6 dropped Mono near the end, there are quite a lot of theories that float around this particular moment, but there are two that I'm leaning on towards the most. The first is 6's anger towards Mono for breaking the music box. While it is clear that Mono did it to save 6 from her torment, she is known to have a lot of anger issues, often shown when it came to revenge. This could be a likely reason why 6 had done that, as a form of revenge, but it also isn't really a good reason to ditch someone who did help you out on several occasions. But the second theory has more weight to it. 6 for the first time has seen Mono's face up close and unmasked, and having been captured by the Thin Man, she would most likely also know how the Thin Man looked up close, very closely resembling Mono. This could be why she took a moment to confirm her suspicion before dropping Mono, as she wanted to not believe that it's true, but when it's up this close, it's hard to ignore the extreme similarities. And not wanting to take any risk beyond this, she drops Mono, not just for her safety, but for the outside world to not risk the Thin Man going loose. A segment from the threshold takes place, showcasing the usual thick mist, before showing the lady, who is the main antagonist of this game, and before anything happens, we once again wake up like before, completing the transition from the counties to the nowhere, and we resume with our deuteragonist, now protagonist, 6. This is what the game shows, proving that 6 was transported into the maw through the threshold, but at the same time, the comic suggests the ferryman, or better known as the Candleman, ferried her to the maw. So it's unclear which of these two instances is true. Regardless, she is at the maw and she is set to explore it. We first stumble upon the janitor, representing the fear of an unsupervised stranger to take care of one's child. He is depicted as someone who has extremely heightened senses when it comes to finding out where 6 is, with only just a few footsteps, and his long arms add to how small the space 6 has to deal with when evading him. This fear is mainly shown when a child gets caught doing something that they shouldn't be doing, and the consequences it faces for doing such things as well. The janitor is also cunning in its own ways, by setting up traps deliberately to catch children at their most vulnerable moment, further proving that it's being watched no matter where it is. Regardless, this janitor soon loses its only way of catching 6, his arms, which kinda makes him useless because of his injuries. After that, we stumble upon the two chefs, often representing those who work behind closed doors, performing atrocious activities, all without anyone's notice, making more apparent how unhygienic the kitchen is, and how there is little regard for that as well. The fear of mystery of what's going on behind closed doors. Who's the person who makes the food, and if it's ever tampered it in any way. This is a fear some children and some adults fear, and these two show it in a more condescending way here. There's a theory going around that both ships were at some point just one, made more apparent with how close their beds are placed with each other, and how everything in their room is just a mirrored version and not something different. It's unclear how they were separated, but it's clear that the separation didn't go as planned, as parts of them still wanted to stay close together whenever and wherever they can. We managed to get away from the two chefs and get a good look at the outside of the mall, where we see the common residents of the place, the guests, and as they're named, extremely obese and greedy with what they have. So greedy that the moment Six passes in front of any of them, they ignore all the food that is given to them on the table and starts chasing after Six, proving their representation of fear of consumerism and FOMO, something that is happening quite a lot during these recent times as well. And at the top balcony is our main antagonist once again, the lady, the overseer of everything that happens in the mall, the one essential for the entire system to function, and because of that, she has to maintain a standard of beauty to her appearance, often covering her face with a mask to hide her true identity, representing the fear of masking one's true self, often forced by social peers and society expectations, limiting oneself to what the world would agree to and not what the world can accept. And not to devaluate herself further, the lady took down all the mirrors that were present in her own domicile, apart from just one mirror that was present in her personal chambers, which Six now has a hold of. This triggers a boss fight, and the mirror acts as a truth that the lady doesn't want to face, repelling all the lies that she has been built upon herself because of society pressure, and once that is done, she is knocked to the ground. Throughout the game, Six often has to deal with hunger issues. This was made apparent at the end of Little Nightmares 2, the sole reason why she selected to traverse to the mall. But as time flew, her hunger grew only worse and worse. It first cured with just a simple piece of food that was kept in front of her, but slowly, unable to decipher between what's meant to be eaten and what isn't, she starts consuming things that weren't ideal but helpful for her survival, shown by her second final consumption, an innocent gnome. But this gnome isn't just any gnome, it's a critical one, and it plays a vital role later on, slowly showing that she is losing herself in the realm. And at the end, forced by her own weakness, she consumes the lady, and along with her hunger being satisfied, she also gains the powers of the lady, but on a much larger scale, consuming the souls of all the guests that dare to reach out to her. At this point, Six is no longer just a lost child trying to find a way out. Just like Mono, she grew into an essential piece necessary for the mall to function. And as she walks out of the mall, all the little gnomes that we have interacted with stared at her exit, wondering what she has truly become and if she is still the same Six that helped them at some point. It's unclear what happened to the mall at the end, since unlike Little Nightmares 2, this one doesn't look to be in a loop, as the mall rests on a nearby shore with Six waiting for someone or something, as at a distance a boat can be heard approaching her. While all this was happening, another awakening also took place, this time with a different protagonist named the Runaway Kid, taking place in the same place, the mall, where we face similar enemies the ones Six faced, and share the same antagonist as well. But this time we come across two new enemies, the first one being the Granny, representing the fear of depths, often hiding in the depths of the unknown and dragging its victims to the bottom to do who knows what, often relating to how there are places so deep and so mysterious that exploring it is considered risky and not worth it to some extent. But we were able to take it down and make our way to the next area, where we encounter our second enemy, the residents' children, also known as the shadow children, representing the fear of brainwashing children to go against each other or against the idealistic play that they were taught in the first place. Here, the children didn't see the runaway kid as just a kid passing by. They saw him as an active threat to themselves, even though the runaway kid didn't do anything as such. What's worse is when a flashlight is shone on them, they slowly disintegrate into non-existence, similar to how young children refuse to hear the truth that they are supposed to hear, and when they do, they refuse to believe in it as well, making matters worse than it should have. At the near end, we meet the lady, but this time a bit differently. We see her without the mask for the first time, and it's pretty clear why she wanted to hide her identity in the first place, looking almost no different than the guest she is serving, further proving how absurd the standards must have been, not being able to accept reality or who she truly is. And this upsets her that someone now knows how she looks like. Fearing that this might be revealed soon, she catches up to the runaway kid and turns him into a gnome, where he is forced to wander before being trapped in the center of the room. With no place to hide, he accepts whatever comes for him, and in the base game, we all know what happened to him. With the series all about nightmares and showing how a particular fear affects an individual, a simple but intriguing question arises. What does this mean? Or what does this even accomplish in the first place? It's simple. Let's have a look at each protagonist, for example, and how they were used in the end. 6 carries hunger. Mono carries his connection to the television frequency. The yellow girl carries the desire to escape. The runaway kid carries nothing more than the need to get out. And the nowhere in each case takes exactly what that child carries and builds a world around it. Not to give them what they need, but to make that need the very thing that destroys them. The worst part is, even though nowhere knows who is best suited for each area, they don't hesitate to experiment on other potential candidates, like the runaway kid. In the end, he achieved nothing and was punished for pushing too far, showing that his role was something else. But since he failed to do so, and in the end, when nowhere found nothing suitable for him, he was instead transformed into a food source, proving that no matter how worthless one can be, there is always some use for it, even if it's at the bottom of the barrel. The same goes for the yellow girl. All she wanted was a way out, but although she did get that, it wasn't in a way she wanted it to be, and it was too late for her. The only thing to remember her is by her yellow raincoat. While on the other hand, 6 and Mono were rewarded for pushing too far by becoming the essential pieces for their own realms to function as expected, with 6 now capable of punishing those who stand in her way, and Mono now being able to control the people through his frequency powers through the television, proving one thing all along. Little Nightmares is all about the fear of what's inside, and succumbing to its motives is more rewarding than overcoming it. It's not about the monster that comes for you, but the thing that you are already carrying that the world around you knew how to use. This is by far one of the deepest rabbit holes I have found myself in. And keep in mind, all this stems from just the initial game, showing the incredible depths games like this are often perceived, despite having such short time requirements to complete all of these games. It's more than enough to learn so much of how their world works and how one becomes a part of it, and not being able to overcome it. And all this stemmed from just the first 3 games and its related comics, not to mention that I'm yet to cover the Little Nightmares 3 and its DLCs in a separate video. So who knows what interesting things I might be able to dig up while I start looking into it. It's interesting how just a simple video game about nightmares turned into a whole realm of what's real and what's not, and I truly can't wait to see what the third entry into the series has to offer. And who knows if it offers even more detail than the first 2, or even an entirely new realm that we never heard of in the first place. Do stay tuned for my next in-depth lore on that. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.